All right, Dan, here we are. The Varsity Voices recap of Week 10, or do you want to say the first week of the playoffs?
First week of the playoffs, I think, is the common vernacular.
All right, good. We'll go with that. Yeah.
Week 1 playoffs. Week 1 of the playoffs.
Yeah, and I wanted to congratulate you, Dan, on your selection as one of the sexiest podcasters of the year.
Right back at you, Joe. Yeah,
all right back
at
you.
Thank
you very much.
Yeah, I think we maybe finished second.
Maybe to the Kelsey brothers. I know they were first, right? But
yeah,
I think we were a close second. And
didn't you get notified that we were second?
I think so, and I'm going to demand a recount. I am.
Yes, it's the spirit of the week.
It is the spirit of the week. You know, I know you stood in line tonight for voting, and I'm going to do that tomorrow as well. Yeah, and I'm sure there's going to be a recount.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. So recount is going to be the word of the week, and I'm going to demand one for the sexiest podcasters of the year.
Yes.
Because I think we got more votes than they counted.
Right. I'd like to know how the voting tabulated.
Right. Yeah. So I submitted that earlier, and I'll post it, later as well. And we can let our listeners weigh in too, Dan. How about that?
That sounds good. You got a nice picture of us?
Yeah, not really. It's not very sexy, I'll tell you that.
We might need marketing to do some editing.
Some creative editing. Could you put our head on this body?
Right.
So, I'll give you a task, Dan. You find the body that you want your head to go on.
Okay.
And send it to our marketing department, and they will put it together. All right?
That sounds good.
All right, good.
Marketing will be all over that.
Yes, they will. All right, so not week 10, first round of the playoffs. Let's go. We're doing our game recaps. And Dan, let's start with Class 3A, the one Class 3A game, and that was Montini and North Lawndale. So this was
Can you hear the Bronco?
I can. You're riding the Bronco, aren't you?
Riding the Bronco.
Yeah, you are. I can tell. And that's good, Dan, because they won 49-0 over North Lawndale. Before we get into this, Dan, can we talk about the seedings? Do you think there needs to be one more criteria in the seedings that the IHSA does? I do. I think it's got to be the eye test. That might be one. The other would be, and I was thinking about it today, maybe, like how they calculate playoff points, right? So you would add into the seeding that Montini, their record was, 7-2 during the regular season, and who they beat. Add up those points, right, for the number of wins for those teams, and then kind of add that criteria to the seedings. Because one of the things that I noticed in going through these games was that the seedings are so far off as far as being accurate. I don't know. How do you feel about that, Dan?
I'm trying to look at like playoff points to see if some of the scheduling would give you some of that. I don't know that if you're taking the same points, that in the layout that you described. I mean, so some of these teams would still have a high number of points because the teams they played, have good records. You know what I mean? So
yes.
But so I don't know that it would be any different, though, Joe.
Well, if you only take into account their wins, right, and then add up the points for the wins of those teams that they beat, you know what I mean?
Well, North Lawndale would have had 44 points.
Really?
Yeah.
right.
I mean, because Sullivan, are you saying the only games they won, you take those
Yes.
points?
Yes. Against their competitors. So, like in that case,
6,
so North Lawndale would be what there?
16,
You know,
22,
we could
29.
We'll dedicate a future episode to this, Dan, because when I went through all the games, I thought these seedings are so far off. And I don't know what kind of difference that might make in who the teams would play in the first round, but I know it would make a difference. For example, and I hate to, and I'm not denigrating the Chicago Public League at all, but like Sullivan was 9-0, right? So they were the number 1 seed. They played the 16 seed, who was,
They played Mather, right?
No,
they played Geneseo. I'm sorry.
Geneseo. And Geneseo kind of stomped them, right? And Geneseo was a 16 seed at 5-4. So it's those kinds of things that I don't think are accurate.
Well, it's not really fair, right? So we've said a million times too. So if let's stay in 3A. I think IC would be a 3A team. Right?
Yes,
what do you
3A
think,
or 4A?
What do you think they would have done to Sullivan? Same thing.
Same
right?
thing.
Yeah.
Yes. I agree.
That's where I think the problem lies, is that you are doing this to get the best teams in each class, right?
Yeah.
So if you start with a team, whoever that might be, regardless of league, that hasn't played a very tough schedule, they're just going to, it's not apples to apples. I think that's a problem. And I think the proposal that has been out there, I don't know if it was officially voted on or not, or where that's at, but, I think that might help with this. I don't know, but I don't know that for sure, because you might just get a bunch of 3 and 6s playing 4 and 5s. And then in the second round, you just have what you have here, in the first, you're just kind of letting maybe not, because maybe then IC then has a chance, right, to at 3 and 6 or whatever they finish 4 and 5, win that game. And then just the fact that they're in gets them a better opportunity to play, win a second round game against an opponent that may not be as strong.
Right.
Does that make sense? So
it does.
So maybe they beat a 3 and 6, and then they're playing Sullivan, who has a bye because they're 9-0. And then if they beat them, now you've kind of righted the ship a little bit.
Yeah, maybe.
As far as the best teams.
Yes, I agree. But when I look at this game, right, you've got number 9 Montini versus number 8 North Lawndale. It shouldn't have been that way, in my opinion. I mean, I think Montini should probably be a much higher seed than number 9. And so if that were the case, then they would have played like a number, I don't know, 13 or 14 seed, something like that. But I still don't think that the way this is laid out works out the best as far as the actual caliber of the team, in my opinion.
Right. To find the best teams, you're not doing that with, but, you want to see people jump up and down, have it be 8 CCL teams in the quarterfinals.
Right. Yeah, which I know they're trying to avoid. I'm saying all the things you shouldn't say out loud right now, but
right.
I know they're trying to avoid that, but I think
which I get as well. I do get that. I do get that. Then they could say, just separate them. You're already a 24 team division. Make a little playoff, little CCL. go ahead and make a little playoff. You could have your champion and celebrate that,
Yeah.
Have everyone can get in the Chicago Catholic League playoff at the end of the year, which no one wants either, because that would be, that's kind of boring,
Yeah. And then it eliminates teams, right?
Yes.
It is kind of boring, right? If these teams just play each other again in the playoffs. But I think with all the smart people out there, that there's a way to make this more reasonable, in my opinion.
We've advocated for tweaking.
Yes, tweaking. Tweaking is good.
I think that's probably got a double connotation in there, so I got to be careful with that. But just kind of looking at it on a year by year basis, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. I think there are people who would be up in arms over changing the traditional way we've done it, but if the tradition sucks, then change it.
It's not accurate.
Yes.
That's what bothers me about it.
Yeah.
I mean, Montini should be I don't know, at the lowest, like a number 3 seed.
Yes.
I think in 3A.
Yeah. Yeah. These schools come out pretty calloused. Yeah, they are hardened and ready to go in the playoffs. That's the benefit.
Yeah,
one of the benefits of the CCL.
All right. Well, you and I both think there might be some changes coming as far as the playoffs are concerned. So we'll talk about that going forward in our episodes that are coming up in the off season. But I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that, Dan, because as I went through some of these games and I was looking at the seedings, I thought this is so far off. If seedings mean the strength of the team and how good they are versus the other teams in the same class, it's not right. It's wrong. I'll just say that. It's wrong. Anyways, and maybe that's my CCL colors showing, Dan.
Yes.
But, yeah. Okay.
Bias is in full effect.
Yes, it is. All right. So Montini versus North Lawndale. Montini wins this game easy, 49-0, which you and I both thought was going to happen. Montini showed up on both sides of the ball. Santino Flores, he caught a touchdown pass. He returned a punt for another score. Israel Abrams had a big game and didn't play the whole game. They rushed the ball as well with Jeremiah Patterson, Chris Judah, Max Bell. I mean, everybody on the Montini side contributed in this game. And they just dominated, Dan, North Lawndale.
Yeah, it was, I don't know if I didn't read it was reported that they had a running clock, but I'm thinking they did. Which we're going to say a few times tonight,
right?
And most of those times will be in favor of the Catholic League teams. But Santino Florio was great. He was everything that we knew he was going to be. Coming into the season, Coach said in the article that I read, the same thing he said to us about his first step quickness, and getting to full speed. And so. He's a fun player to watch. So, which is one of the reasons, I wanted to go by Santino for the rest of the year, but it didn't take. So.
It didn't, because your first step is not as quick as it used to be, Dan.
No. I think I pulled my hamstring getting out of bed this
immediately.
Morning. So,
yes.
Yeah. But so Montini dominated. It's got to be, they've got to like the fact that they were able to play a lot of people. You're less likely to have injury. You could rest a lot of guys. So, they play Byron next week, which is a rematch of the semis last year. So we go, they ramp up big time in competition. So
they do.
So that'll be fun. But this game was pretty decided pretty quickly. So,
yeah, it was. And I know North Lawndale I mean, they've got some good players, some impact players like their quarterback Tyshawn Perkins. So I mean, he was somewhat successful against the Montini defense. I think he ran for 17 times, 104 yards, was 6 for 21 passing with 64 yards. So he is a really talented player, but from a standpoint of the whole team, Montini versus North Lawndale, I mean, Montini just dominated this game. So the next game for them against Byron is really going to be probably one of the better games, Dan, in 3A, considering.
I think you're right.
It's probably the two best teams, right? You would think in 3A?
On paper, from reputation, right? We can go by that this is going to be a state championship caliber game between these two teams. And Montini comes in with a major chip on their shoulder. We watched a little bit of their practice. They get after it a little bit. They're going to be fired up, for next week.
Yeah. And we'll do our predictions episode later in the week, so we won't talk about what we think about right now in that matchup, Dan, but it's really going to be a good one. So
One to look forward to. Hang a star on that one, Joe.
Hang a star. I will. I've just done that, and hashtag hang a star. Okay. All right, so let's move to Class 4A, and the first game here, Dan, was DePaul Prep versus Dyett. DePaul Prep, I'm going to say this in every game, Dan, was seeded number 9. Dyett was number 8.
Can we just say ditto?
Ditto on this. DePaul Prep wins 48-8. Really good game for DePaul Prep as far as the first round of the playoffs. Some of the guys we've been talking about all year for DePaul Prep showed up in this game. Juju Rodriguez, their quarterback, 2 touchdowns passing to Braden Peavy. Matt Osterman, 365 yards of total offense. A name that we hadn't talked about this year, Dan, but who had 2 rushing TDs for DePaul was Nicholas Hathcote. Did you see that?
They played a lot of people. They had a running clock by half. So it was a chance to. It's a good thing for us to see, and good thing for these kids. Better for them than for us. But that they might give the ball to people that don't get a ton of touches during the regular season, which is great and really cool that some of these guys have a chance to show their ability and to get in the end zone. So that's fun.
Yeah. And another good game on defense for Jet Reese. I think DePaul only gave up like 130 yards of total offense. Jet Reese had a bunch of tackles, sack as well. So he had a really good game. And what's on tap for DePaul now is playing Geneseo, who was the number 16 seed. And they beat Sullivan, who was the number 1 seed, 42-0. All right,
ditto, guess what offense?
Ditto on that.
Ditto. Yeah. Guess what offense Geneseo runs?
Let me think. The wing T?
The double wing. The double wing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, the double wing. You see it as soon as you get out of that. You see it like just right at 39 and 88. And then you kind of from there on, so it is like 80% double wing.
Yeah, I know how you like geography, Dan. So how many miles would you say that is outside of the Chicago area that
I'm going to say
run the double wing team?
Well, you do see some of it, right? JCA is like the masters, the originators.
Yeah, they are. They're good.
But they I think you see the percentage increase every 10 miles outside of Kane County, let's say west of Kane County.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah, so it's kind of, it increases exponentially, and then because it works, and that's
It does.
why it's really tough to stop. It's ball control, it's all those things, and you have to play physically. If you're a team that doesn't play physically, you're going to have a tough afternoon.
Yeah, well, Geneseo has been playing that and playing it successfully for 40 years, right?
Yeah.
The same kind of offense. I mean, they played that offense when I was in high school.
You played them, right?
We didn't play them, but
I played them.
The year before me played them in the
Yeah.
in the playoffs. So
Okay.
and they've been running it well for 40 years. So, and it showed against Sullivan, beating them 42-0. So this is going to be an interesting matchup. But again, we'll wait for our predictions episode to talk about that one.
Yeah, this one was a blowout. No, we don't have to mince words. It was a blowout. It was over quickly. They played a lot of people in the second half. And like I said, ditto to the Montini game.
Yes. Okay. One thing about that potential matchup, Dan, DePaul and St. Lawrence looming in the quarterfinals, if they both, went through their next couple of games here. So that would be interesting, a CCL matchup.
Yeah, that would be the next week, right? Yeah, in the quarters.
Yeah,
you're right.
The next week. Yep.
Week. Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, I guess we'll get to St. Lawrence next, but they're going to have their hands full.
They are.
They didn't this past week, but they are going to next week. Yeah.
I had this game really wrong, Dan. Richmond, Burton, and St. Lawrence. I think I picked Richmond, Burton. You picked St. Lawrence. So kudos to you. And this was another game that, I thought was going to be much closer, but St. Lawrence wins this 35-17. St. Lawrence was really, they had some injuries over kind of through midseason. The quarterback, Chase Kwiatkowski, he was out. Harley Riz was out. But both of them looked 100% healthy in this game.
Yes.
Yeah, Harley Riz rushed for 216 yards and 4 touchdowns, Dan.
Yeah, he was incredible. He also had a 75-yard touchdown reception.
Right.
So they were awesome. They looked like week 1, 2, 3, 4 St. Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
I think I said in our prediction episode, if Kwiatkowski's back, they win. He's a difference maker, and I give a lot of credit to the sophomore who took his place and kind of held everything together and kept him competitive. But this kid's a difference maker. There's a reason he's a high level college player. So he did what he probably, could say should do. And so they also, while it wasn't a running clock, it was a kind of a pretty easy win, for St. Lawrence.
Yeah, it was. And they rushed the ball outstanding. So we said, Riz had 216 yards. I think their other running back, Corey Less, finished with over 100 yards rushing. So St. Lawrence rushed for, just under 400 yards in this game, Dan, which really surprises me a bit. I know Richmond Burton, they had a really good season. By the way, their seed was number 5 and St. Lawrence was number 12, Dan.
Mm-hmm.
Just to make sure we talk about that.
Right.
But I got to give a lot of credit to St. Lawrence here. They went through a little bit of a patch there where they where a couple of key players were injured. But they come back in this game and they are clicking on all cylinders, which is the right time of year to do it. And, they just dominated in this game.
Yeah, they're really good. They're very talented. Their thoughts were state championship
Yep.
coming into the year. There was no let up. So hang a star in their next game too. Wheaton Academy, really good. Scores a ton of points. So that is not a double wing. So
No,
they are
they're a little bit
they're
different. Well, they're
high
only
flying.
let's see, they're at the 16-mile mark, Dan,
Right.
outside of the Chicago area, so they do
Well
not
within
run
range.
well within range, right? And
Yes.
I believe they're the number one seed, aren't they? Wheaton Academy. They were so now they're 9-1. They beat Sandwich 55-19. So
I think they're number 4 seed, Joe.
no,
Yeah.
who's number one?
Breeze Central.
Okay, right. All right.
Yes, of course. Breeze Central.
Bree Central, yes. We've talked about them a lot this year.
Yep. They're really on our radar. They're probably really damn good. So
yeah, we'll see. Another possible CCL matchup here in the quarterfinals, Dan, might be DePaul and St. Lawrence. I think I mentioned that up top, but that'd be interesting if they both win their next game. They'd be playing each other in the quarterfinals. So,
did we talk about who DePaul has, Joe?
Yeah.
Next,
they played Geneseo.
Oh yeah, that's right. We talked a lot about them. Yeah, sorry.
No worries. All right. We've got a lot of information we're trying to digest here, Dan. So I don't expect you to know every little detail. That's what I do.
Yes.
Right.
All
right.
Central is by St. Louis.
Gosh.
Oof, wow.
Yeah. So
where's that game at?
Well, that would be if they're the number one seed. Since this game would be,
they wouldn't see him until the state championship. They're in the southern bracket. Okay.
All right, let's go to St. Francis and Sterling. So St. Francis took care of business here, 42-18 win. This was at St. Francis. Zach Washington had a outstanding game, Dan. He had a 95-yard kickoff return. He followed that up by he scored on a 92-yard reverse. And I was looking at some of the film as well as some of the coverage on this, and they said as far as his speed was concerned, nobody could keep up with him on the field. So
that's a good spot to be in.
It is, yeah.
Yep, you want to have one of those guys, at least one.
Yeah, I was not one of those guys.
No, we were not. We were plotters. We would have fit well. We would have fit well outside of the 39-88 corridor. Right. We would have fit right in.
Yeah, the double wing T. Is that what you called it? Yeah.
Double wing, yep.
Double wing, yeah.
Yeah.
But also Brady Palmer, junior quarterback for St. Francis. He had another really good game, showed up for this. Threw for a couple of touchdowns. He also ran for another one. So some of the same things we saw from Brady throughout the year. He showed up in the first game of the playoffs here, and they came away with a pretty convincing win of 42-18 over Sterling.
Yeah, and we saw Sterling early in the year. They played Notre Dame. We thought their offense might struggle. So interesting to see how that kind of played out, and it looks like, I don't know if this game, if there was a running clock or not in this game, but it was kind of what we predicted, that St. Francis would pull away, and I think they actually jumped on them pretty quick. So it was, they had a D lineman run for a touchdown, which is kind of fun and is as part of the offense. So they'll also take a big step up this next week.
Yeah, they will, because they got to play number 5 Prairie Ridge, right?
Yes.
who beat good Chicago team 65-6. Right. This
Yeah.
is a tough bracket
Yeah.
for St.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
you've
It's
got Prairie
awful.
Ridge, who's always good, right?
Right.
But you also have Sycamore, who's now I think 10-0, who's in this bracket as well. So St. Francis has their work cut out for them, but I do think they could come out of this bracket, Dan,
Yeah,
for
they're tough
sure.
out for sure.
They are a tough out, especially the way they're playing right now. So
Yeah.
we'll see, but that's going to be a really good game, St. Francis and Prairie Ridge this coming weekend.
Yeah, I'm
All
looking
right.
forward to it. Yep, there's a lot of good ones. It definitely takes a jump up this next week.
Yeah, it does. All right, let's go to the next 5A game, and that was number 2 Rochelle versus number 15 Marmion. Marmion back in the playoffs this year after, let's see, a couple year hiatus. I think the last time they were in was 2021. But again, Dan, here's a team, Rochelle, that runs the wing T offense and runs it really well.
Yes.
They rushed for over 300 yards. And I think they wanted to show this probably, that they could throw the ball too, because their quarterback, Carson Lewis, he threw for 3 touchdown passes as well. So, they win this game easy over Marmion 42-7.
Yeah, and he was, I think he threw for over 100 yards, Joe. And so I think this was a running clock, but the other way. So that here's one where the CCL got clocked, and not a great day for Marmion. I know they still feel like it's something they could build upon in Coach Garrett's first season. They had a lot of highlights. Mateus Nice, Player of the Year in that division, which is really cool. Coach changed his position, and it really paid off for them. So he talked about that way back in July, and it was good to see that he kind of verified what Coach's thoughts were about his athletic ability. So they have a lot of good things that they can point to for this year. But yeah, Rochelle is a handful for sure. They run that offense well. They've got horses up front. They play physically. And they're going to be a tough team to handle moving forward.
Yeah, they will be. And I mean, I know this isn't the way Marmion was hoping their season would end. I'm sure they wanted to go further into the playoffs, but when you look at where Marmion has been at over the last couple of years and where Coach Guerra has taken them this year, me personally looking at this sees this as a big win for Marmion and a big win for their program. I mean, there's it's in my opinion nothing but up here for Marmion going forward.
Yeah, I think they've put themselves in a good position for the future. I don't know, I do want to do episodes, Joe, on kind of the lower levels, and check how they performed, and maybe get some feedback from some of the coaches on some of the players we should be talking about early on for next year. So that obviously is a factor, but they played a lot of young people too, especially at the quarterback position. So they'll have some guys returning. Probably some guys to replace as well. Obviously, all these teams do. So, but a good building block for Marmion.
Yeah, I think so too. All right, good. So the next 5A game here, and this is number 7 Benet versus number 10 Perspectives Leadership.
Coop,
the co-op, right? So Benet really, they scored 41 first half points, and didn't look back from there. The final score I think was 48-0, And Dan, I think that was Bennett's first playoff win in 7 years.
Yeah.
Does that sound right to you?
It does. It does. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they've been, kind of waiting. We knew they were out of the playoffs for 4 years, but they're back. They've got a lot of weapons on offense. Luke Doyle was outstanding. He had a pick. He had a couple touchdown receptions. Ryan Kabaki was great.
Yeah.
Marty Radgowski.
Right.
The cast of characters for Benet kind of leading the way. And, so they also got to play a lot of people. I think in the second half they played a lot of people that don't necessarily get a ton of time during the season. Joe Salvino got a couple carries and a score. So he's a junior running back. And so that's always good. But, we just talked about their next opponent, Rochelle. They'll have their hands full with Rochelle for sure.
They will.
Sure.
Yeah, and it's good to see Marty Radgowski back, and it looks like he's 100% healthy, based on his performance this week or this past weekend. So that bodes well for Benet going forward for sure. And, getting some of these other players some time and them being successful, I think will work well for Benet too going forward. But you're right, Dan. They've got a tough opponent coming up in this coming weekend against Rochelle. So, and they've got to go out to Rochelle and play them there. So that'll be an interesting game to watch, and I'm sure it'll be one you and I are paying close attention to.
Yeah, Friday night too, which is interesting. That there's more Friday night games in this second week than I anticipated. So
yeah, me too.
So yeah, it's kind of fun.
Yeah, it is kind of fun. All right, so let's move to the Nazareth Payton game, Dan. Another blowout that we pretty much predicted, and Nazareth won this game 54-0. Again, a lot of the names that we've talked about all year for Nazareth. Their quarterback Logan Malachek had a outstanding game. He had 4 touchdowns, passing, 2 of them to Trenton Walker. They're really outstanding wide receiver. One to Jake Sestone, another one to Garrett Reese. They had a couple of rushing touchdowns as well. Anthony Donato and Lesroy Tittle, their running backs. And their defense showed up for sure. And as we kind of expected, they held Payton to under 100 yards in total offense, Dan. I think it was somewhere in the high 80s. So, this game was never close.
No, and I think running clock started with about 9 minutes to go in the third quarter. Nazareth also got to play a bunch of folks, guys who whose names we haven't said a lot. I know Jack Nisivako scored a touchdown, running the ball. Orion Caceres, he had a score, and then I'm thinking this is maybe his son or a relative. Frankie Nichols completed a touchdown pass to Nick Rackey.
Oh, it's gotta be.
So that was
right.
That was the final. I'm guessing there's a good chance. So
there's a really good chance on that.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. So interesting to see what that Nazareth. They while they went running clock, they still had a little bit of success afterward with guys who haven't played very much. So
yeah.
So good afternoon for them, and they'll be ready for next week against Woodstock North.
Yeah, who's having a really good year, right? I think you mentioned it.
I did.
Yeah, you said it's. How did you categorize their year?
Generational.
Dan? Generational, right? And they're now 8-2. They beat Freeport 34-24. It's going to be a good game. I'm not sure where this game is at.
It's at Nazareth.
At Naz, right?
Saturday. They're playing Saturday afternoon.
Yeah. So, you know how I like to talk about games that might be looming out there, Dan?
Yes.
All CCL games. So depending on how all of this goes, there could be a St. Francis Nazareth matchup in the semifinal. Next week, there could be a Nazareth Benet matchup. So, CCL teams are, doing well here through the first round. And, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of other matchups here going forward.
Yeah, some rematches there that would be interesting. If Benet can beat Rochelle, they had a rough go against Naz a few weeks ago, and then if however the semifinals, if it does end up where St. Francis and Nazareth are there, that's obviously a rematch of one of the best games of the year in the conference. So there's definitely things that we can point to. Coaches have to worry about this week, but we can point to things all we want, and do some. Yeah, it's fun. It's a fun part of the playoffs is looking at the what ifs in the bracket. So some potentially good games out there.
All right. So the other 5A game here, and this in the bottom bracket or the south bracket, I guess we would call it, was Joliet Catholic against Jacksonville. And this was complete domination by Joliet Catholic. Dan, they scored 6 touchdowns in the first half. They ran the ball 30 times in that first half. And they piled up over the course of the game over 420 yards rushing, all on the backs of Nate McGreeny, Larry Stringham. They had a backup in there as well, Anthony Finnegan, who scored a touchdown. They even got some Lucas Similik, who's coming around as a quarterback from, who's been really kind of somebody who's been the general of the offense, kind of directing the offense. But, in this game, he threw a couple of touchdown passes as well. So they're showing that ability too, and I think that bodes well for Joliet Catholic going forward, because they're going to have some tough games. They got Sacred Heart Griffin coming up next week.
Right. Yeah, that's a tough one. They dominated this game. Let's see, where have I said this before? Running clock. So
right.
I know that triggers you into your seeding discussion.
It does. Although this one, all right, Joliet Catholic number 6, Jacksonville number 11.
Yeah.
That's something I can work with, Dan.
It surprises me, actually, Joe. I thought Jacksonville, because they had some serious offensive weapons, I thought they might have some more success. Joliet Catholic, though, I think I'll just speak for myself. I underrate their defense. I talk a lot about St. Rita's and Marist and some of these defenses that have just been so stingy. Naz defense all year. Joliet Catholic's is right there with anyone's in the conference, because they are tough, physical. They held Naz to 16 points, I think, which was, it was still their lowest output. So they don't have to take second to anybody in the conference defensively, and so this, while the score surprised me, I thought it'd be more of a Joliet Catholic pulling away, slowly, maybe just over time, kind of grinding it out and maybe giving up a score here and there. They pounced, and it was running clock in the second quarter. So that's a dominating win for them.
Yeah, dominating all facets, right, Dan? Offense, which we talked about, defense, special teams as well. I think they had 3 turnovers, 3 or 4 turnovers actually in this. One was interception by Mikey Brown for Joliet Catholic, and ran it back 55 yards for a touchdown, in the first half. So, they dominated in all aspects of this game. They play now Sacred Heart Griffin in the next game, who won in a close game, 24-21 over, I believe, the number 1 seed, Muhammad Seymour. But a what if, Dan, could be an all CCL final in 5A.
Yeah, could be. It's
Since
definitely on. Well, I'm not going to
yeah,
say on track, but it's a good draw for Joliet Catholic. I think maybe to just
yeah,
from a CCL perspective, these are really good teams. Sacred Heart Griffin, Peoria is really good. So they've got their work cut out for them, no doubt about it. But I think if you were, kind of seeding this, within each bracket, even Morgan Park, we talk about public school teams, and they're pretty good.
yeah,
They're the kind of the one of the teams that's a class of that division. So, while it's not easy, I like how you're thinking that you could see 5A is the most likely spot to have an all CCL final.
yeah, it is for sure. And we'll be watching, Dan, and we'll be reporting how the teams do, going forward. So, but that's 5A. We've got no 6A teams in the CCL and the playoffs this year. But if we move to 7A, the first game here was Fenwick and Brother Rice. And this was probably the I don't know, if you look at all the scores on the playoff games, really in all the classes, this might have been one of the closest games in all the classes, Dan. And it doesn't surprise me all that much, but Fenwick ends up beating Brother Rice 12-7 in this game. So quite a defensive battle here.
Yeah, which is kind of what we thought. I think we thought that, I thought that Brother Rice, I think I picked Brother Rice, and, on the strength of CJ Gray's legs, and they actually forced him into a safety,
Right.
at one point. But so field position was a factor in this one, which is really typical for great defensive teams. So it was a hard-nosed, hard-hitting, tough game between two great teams. We've covered these teams all year. We talked about kicking being a factor in some of these games, and Noah Sir made a 41-yard field goal. So he also was really critical in the kicking game overall. With the field possession. So they've got some things there at Fenwick that can help them as they move along in the playoffs. And it'll be interesting to see how the weather holds up, for something like that. But even in bad weather, I'd rather have a really good kicker and punter than not a good one.
Yeah, that's true.
Pretty easy to say, right?
Yeah, and Frankie Hosty was the quarterback again for Fenwick here, Dan. Jamin Williams did not play. I know he was injured a couple of games ago, and Hosty had a really good game last week. He had another good one this week. Threw for 173 yards. I think it was 15 of 29. And they were able to rush the ball as well. But, on both sides, they were able to rack up some yards from a total offense standpoint, but they really had trouble scoring. Yeah. If we were to, I think Tyler Lofton rushed for over 100 yards against, for Brother Rice.
It was close. If it wasn't 100, it was right there.
It was right there, right?
Yeah.
And, but neither team could put it into the end zone as often as they would have liked to, for sure. But, if we were to have a dog of the week this week, which we don't, by the way, but, Jack Paris, who we've talked about a lot from Fenwick this year, their linebacker, he had an outstanding game, Dan. I guess he was all over the field. You talked about that safety, and he was in on that as well. He also, he played on offense too. They gave him the ball, in a couple of situations where they needed, a tough couple of yards to get a first down. He was able to do that for them. So, Jack Paris, outstanding player, showed up big in this game on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, he's a stud. He's like a every week member of the dog pound.
He
Probably could have
is.
been
Yeah.
dog, but could have been the dog more than once. But yeah, yeah, we've said about their defense. I love how they play. They're one of these defenses in the CCL that is that. Yeah, I always say you're going to play Fenwick, you better tighten up your chin strap a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, they'll knock your block off, as on defense. So they've been doing it all year. There's no reason to think they won't. They make life miserable on opposing teams. CJ Gray had a tough day. I think he did score maybe, but they had he was under 50% completion percentage, not for a lot of yards. So it was a tough day for the Brother Rice offense.
Yeah, and so now Fenwick, they play the number 5 seed Downers Grove North, who beat Wheaton Warrenville South 34-7, and has been really good all year. I think they've only got one loss.
Yeah, kind of a surprise loss to York, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it was a surprise just from the rankings at the time, and York probably wouldn't say that, but they Downers Grove North's got a great quarterback, young quarterback. I think Owen Lansu is his name. He's really good, highly recruited. One of these big time QBs, which Illinois seems to have a ton of right now in every different grade, from freshman to senior. So
Yeah.
that'll be a great challenge for Fenwick and their defense. I'm interested to see how they perform, against kind of a big school power like Downers Grove North.
Yeah, that will be a really good game, I'm sure. I'm not sure where that game is at, but I'm thinking that might be at Fenwick.
That is going to be at Downers Grove North.
Oh,
close.
Really?
You're 50% chance.
Yeah, close. Darn it. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I think we're still in the higher seed phase. At some point, there starts to be you're gonna be surprised at this, Joe, but some wacky formula about if you've played at home twice or if you've been on the road more than once, if your colors are purple, that all plays into it.
Got a touch of white or gold in your colors, then
you're definitely home. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Okay, let's move on then to St. Rita in Rockford, Guilford, Dan. St. Rita wins easy in this game, 45-3 over Rockford, Guilford. Stephen Armbruster had an outstanding game. Threw for over 220 yards. 2 of those were touchdowns to Nick Herman. Another 2 to Walter Jones. He had over 130 yards receiving. I think Armbruster also ran in a touchdown too. I mean, their defense showed up, Dan, led by James Kingsbury, Owen Lynch, who is a Dog Pound member, Justin Buckner, who was one of our Zuko's Dog of the Week winners. They held Guilford to under 100 yards of total offense. So it was a complete game for St. Rita, and they come out with a win over Guilford, 45-3.
Yeah. Do you think there's something too when Zuko visits these teams? So. They light it up defensively.
Yes. You know what? Now that you say that, I think that's a thing. So
yeah.
I would imagine we're going to get a lot of phone calls tomorrow, Dan, about wanting us to come out with Zuko this week.
Yes.
Right.
Yep. Just, if they have
give
treats,
them that little edge,
have treats. We'll ride. No,
hot dogs. He likes hot dogs.
He does. He does.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. It's all about the whole car ride thing. Whew.
Yeah, but Zuko enjoys it, and I think the Dog of the Week winners enjoy it too. They enjoy meeting Zuko because
and the defenses respond. So
they do for sure. And St. Rita's did this week, absolutely, only giving up 3 points. Um, they now will play, let's see, number 26 Willowbrook, who beat Rockton Hananaga. I can say that name. They beat
Nailed
them
it.
40-21, Dan, and I think Rockton Hananaga was maybe a number 4 seed.
Yeah, that was a bit of an upset there.
Yeah, I think
I
so.
think, yeah, we talked about Hananaga having being a big physical, almost CCL like team. So I was a little surprised by that score. But Willowbrook traditionally, for the past 10 to 15 years, they've been pretty good. I know they used to like to
they have.
throw it all over, and they've had a lot of talent. So should be a fun game between those two teams.
Yeah. And my what if possible semifinal matchup with Mount Carmel. So we could see a St. Rita Mount Carmel matchup here, Dan, at some point if they both continue winning. So that'd be fun too.
Yeah, that's a rematch, right?
Yep.
Of early in the season. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. All right. So the last 7A matchup here was and this one really gets me, Dan. The number 19 seed Mount Carmel versus the number 14 seed Harlem. And Mount Carmel won this game 56-14 over Harlem. Daniel Taylor, 2 rushing touchdowns. Jack Elliott looked really good in this game. He threw for just about 250 yards, all in the first half. Touchdowns to Jay Cozy as well as Quentin Burrell. It was 49-0 at the half, Dan, and that meant what?
Running clock.
Running clock, yes. But Mount Carmel really looked good.
I have to say, Joe, when we go through this game in particular, really kind of makes me buy into your whole seeding thing. Someone's got to have eyes on this that says, you know what? I know Mount Carmel's 6-3, but they're not a 19 seed.
No, and if you look at the 7A rankings by the variety of outlets out there that do rankings, I think Mount Carmel is ranked number 1 or number 2, right, in 7A everywhere, but they're number 19 in the playoffs as far as their seeding is concerned.
Yeah, you kind of, I don't know. Yeah, you kind of, maybe stack the deck that way against them. I don't know, by making them a 19 seed, but they don't seem to care. I mean, Max Preps has them number 3. Yeah, in the state. So behind East St. Louis and Lincoln Way East, ahead of Loyola, who just beat them, which doesn't make a ton of sense. But
right.
But yeah, there probably needs to be something that looks at this and says, all right, this doesn't pass a smell test that these guys are a 19 seed.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned what I would do, right? So, IHSA, go ahead, give me a call. We'll talk. Yeah. And we'll talk about that algorithm or whatever you're using to put the seedings on these teams, and we'll come up with something better.
You know what?
What?
Why don't they you say call you? They should have some sort of a committee that looks at this.
That I run. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll run it and I'll be on it.
Right. Yeah.
So we can have a say, and then they have to have other dignitaries that are maybe we're not legendary yet. That might be a little stretch.
Might be a stretch. Yeah. Although listeners, please weigh in and send us comments on whether or not we're legendary or not.
Are we dignitaries yet?
Or dignitaries, yeah.
Yeah. But I think that it's a good idea to have someone have eyes on this. Someone who can say, you guys really sure Mount Carmel's the 19th seed in 7A?
Right.
But you'd have, you'd have teams like Harlem, McChesney Park, saying, no, they're not. They are not a 19 seed.
Right, because we're a 14 seed,
Yeah.
and something did not work right.
Right.
As far as, but like you said, Dan, I don't think Mount Carmel cares what seed they are. they'll play anybody.
Yeah.
Number 1 seed, number 2 seed, whether they're a 19 or 1 or not. I don't think they care. Yeah. And they're probably going to be there at the end as well.
They'd be a good bet.
Yeah, they would be. Now, saying that, it will be an interesting game this coming weekend against the number 3 seed, St. Charles North, who's had a really good year. I think they're 9-1 now. They beat Rolling Meadows 49-14. So this is another game I'm interested in seeing. Just because of, the things that I've heard about St. Charles North and how good they are this year. And we'll see how good they really are when they go up against Mount Carmel.
Well, they've been good for a long time. They don't have to back down to anybody. They play in a really tough conference. Very well coached. So it was. It's not a surprise that they're there. So yeah, that's going to be a really good game. And Mount Carmel, both teams are going to have their hands full with one another.
Yeah. So you want to hear my what ifs for this? All right.
Yes.
So it could possibly be a Mount Carmel St. Rita in the quarterfinals, right? This could be an all CCL final, with Fenwick in the top bracket and Mount Carmel in the bottom bracket here, Dan.
Wow, that'd be interesting. Did they play?
I don't think so. I don't think they played this year. No. So it'd be interesting to see that game. But, we can wait for it, right? There's going to be some good games between now and then. And,
a lot of good football. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, we would love for that to happen because we love the Chicago Catholic League. But we'll let the games play out and see what happens.
Yeah, Joe, Mount Carmel did play Fenwick.
They did? Gosh, darn it.
They beat him 35-10. So
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry, I shouldn't put you on the spot. I've got it at my fingertips.
Yeah. So why don't you just say it rather than ask me?
Yep. Nope, you're wrong.
Right. And tell me I'm wrong. I'm wrong over and over again. But I don't think Nate Marshall carried the ball in that game, Dan. No. In this game this week, did you see they snapped it directly to Nate Marshall and he ran it in for a touchdown?
I did. Yeah. Yep.
So, that might make the difference.
Joe, I mean, all kidding aside, we talked about that, right? Thought it might happen later in the year in the regular season that you start seeing some of these guys going both ways. I mean, I know Nate Marshall has played wide receiver, on a pretty regular basis. But saying, all right, we're not going to worry about trying to get a quarterback to get him the ball. We're going to snap it to him directly, and you go ahead and try and stop him and or Jack Harris.
Right.
Have fun with that.
So,
yeah.
All right. Yeah. So, now I'm really hoping for that final, Fenwick and Mount Carmel in the state championship game, Dan.
Yeah, we'll see. All
right. We'll see. Okay, so let's move to Class A and Marist and Glenbrook South. Marist wins this game 42-14. They pulled away in the second half of this game. John McAuliffe, really good running back for Marist. Yeah, 167 yards, 3 touchdowns on 19 carries. He also added 2 catches for 45 yards. Jake Ritter, 8 of 9 passes for 121 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also ran for another touchdown. So Jake Ritter had an awesome game. As we know, Marist defense is really good. They show up in this game as well. Brad Fitzgibbon had a great game. One of our Zuko's Dog of the Week winners. Josh Laura one of the defensive linemen who was one of our dog pound members. Had a good game too, coming up with the fumble recovery. They had a couple interceptions. So, a complete game for Marist against Glenbrook South on both offense and defense in this game.
Yeah, it was a game into the second quarter. I mean, the it kind of went back and forth in the first quarter. I know Glenbrook South took the lead 14-7, at some point early on. And then it wasn't, Marist tied it up with, in the middle of the second quarter and then took the lead, before half, 21-14. So this game was fairly close at halftime, so it saw Marist kind of start to pull away, and in the second half. So, and their defense really started to assert themselves. So while it looks like a blowout, it wasn't always that way in this game. It wasn't like some of the other games we've talked about.
Yeah. Well, before I say anything about this, Dan, you can tell me, because I'm sure you know this, and I'm not going to let you bait me this time. So, Marist hosts Loyola in the second round. Did they play this year?
Oh boy, that is a.
You're
really
lying.
Good,
you know exactly if they did or did
question.
Not.
They did not.
They did not. Okay. All right. So this is going to be an interesting game, isn't it? So Marist, we've got. So are they 9-1 now? Marist
is 9-1.
9-1 against Loyola, who is 8-2.
Yeah.
7-3. Yeah, but
8-2. Yeah.
8-2. Loyola beat Belleville East 48-6, pretty easily. This is a matchup that I'm really looking forward to seeing, even though there can only be one. The thing that bums me out about it is there can only be one Chicago Catholic League that makes it to the finals in the 8A potentially, because these are the last two left here, Loyola and Marist. But this is going to be a really good game.
Yeah, it's state championship quality game, in round two. So it'll be really fun to see. It is kind of a bummer that. Funny how that worked out that they're playing in the second round. Not that I'm a conspiracy theorist, but
yeah. Interesting. Well, it all has to do with the seedings, Dan. So, yeah, Loyola is the number 12 seed in 8A, even though they might be ranked 1, 2, or 3 in all of those, people out there who do the rankings, but
yes,
no, here they're number 12, right? But I don't know.
Yeah, in rankings they're 3 or 4.
Yes,
and statewide. Yeah.
Anyway,
not that it matters.
Not that it matters. No,
yeah.
But that brings us to Loyola, the last game that we're covering in 8A, and Loyola played Belleville East, and they blew them out 48-6. And the one thing I thought about this game, Dan, or when I watched some of this and looked at some of the coverage and some of the data on it, is that Ryan Fitzgerald, I think, is fully recovered from whatever injury he had to his hamstring, because he threw for 172 yards and 3 touchdowns in the first half, and then they sat him down, for the rest of the game.
Yeah, he is so efficient.
He's
on top
good.
of being explosive.
Yeah.
Man, he has really, kind of reasserted himself after I guess probably what might be considered a slow start. But the thing that impresses me about him is just his efficiency, and on top of, and it's not dinking and dunking, it's
no.
Well over 12 yards an attempt, and so he is he's the real deal. He is a total huge difference maker for these guys, and a winner and all that stuff. I mean, it is 2 great quarterbacks in this next game against Marist, and he showed it. They were in control from the very start of the game. So and kind of all their guys, McPherson, Robinson, Dog, Zuko's Dog of the Week winner. So they were all highlighted in this game, and it's like we said, it sets up an awesome round 2 matchup.
It does. And, you're talking about difference makers. And how many times have we mentioned Drew McPherson over the course of the year? As to what he can do, not only running the ball, but he's also a weapon out of the backfield, passing, receiving as well. I think he had two more touchdowns in this game, but he's really an outstanding player. And, along with Ryan Fitzgerald, if you're not keeping track of Drew McPherson, you are going to have a problem.
Yeah. And, I saw him as a sophomore and couldn't believe he was a sophomore at the time, just watching some film of him. And he is such a handful, great vision, great balance, great blend of toughness. He's not a top end speed guy, but he's got enough speed, more than enough speed to get the job done at this level or the next. He's got a bright future, great football player. He and Fitz, makes me really, really happy they're going to Iowa. Super thrilled about that. Yeah.
That'll be good.
Super thrilled.
Yeah. Interesting to watch them once they get to Iowa, how they progress.
Yeah, but we've got a chance to enjoy them and still root for them after this week. Well, we won't take sides between them and Marist,
no,
because
we can't.
I love both those teams.
Right.
And Marist was nice enough to invite us over. So this is I'm glad we're not making any predictions tonight, Joe, because it's this is going to be a tough one.
Yeah, but you're going to be on the hook, Dan, for later on in this week. You're going to have to make a projection in this game. So between now and Thursday, I'm going to say, it's time to reach out to your prognosticus.
Hey, he's tapping at the window now. He's got thoughts.
Especially on this game. For sure. This one will be a tough one. So I know I'm going to rely on my prognosticus to weigh in on this one.
Which team has more Italians?
Yeah. So let's see here.
Have you ever checked that? Have you ever checked to see are all your picks on the team with more Italians?
Shh. Yeah. You're not supposed to say that. But Loyola, I don't know if this is if he's Italian or not. Well, we may have to check this. No, I know that's not Italian. But, on defense this past week in this game, with 2 sacks was Tommy Ghislandi.
Yeah.
What do you think? You think that's Italian or not? He had 2 sacks. Ghislandi?
Boy, that's tough. I'm saying
Ghislandi?
No.
Yeah.
I'm saying no.
The H in the middle of the name there. If it was just Gislandi.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Or Ghislandini. Yeah, for sure.
And if his first name was Santino?
Santino. Yeah, we need more Santinos in the Chicago Catholic League for sure.
For sure.
All right. Yeah, so Loyola, as you mentioned, they traveled to Marist for round 2. So, we've got some really good games coming up here, Dan, in round 2, and we're going to be covering them. But before the games actually happen, we're going to be coming to you with our predictions and previews of the games. And, after we get our prognosticus to weigh in on some of these games with us, and make sure you look for that coming up the end of the week, because we'll put that out there for sure. As always, Dan, you got one more thing?
Just real quick. So the surname Ghislandi is most likely found in Italy Brazil, and the United States. And whether he's a descendant or not, Pietro Ghislandi is an Italian actor born in Bergamo in 1957. You're going to like this one, though, Joe. Giuseppe Ghislandi was born in Bergamo in 1655, died there in 1743. So
Jesus, that's a long time ago, Dan.
Yes, yes.
But
so
that counts. It counts for sure.
I'm going to go back on my prediction and say I'm guessing a likely Italian.
Yeah, because that would be his great grandfather, probably going
Something
all the way
like
back
that.
to the 1600s.
Something like that. Yes. Yeah. Maybe a couple more greats.
All right. Yeah, maybe a couple more, but we'll count him as an Italian. Okay.
Yeah. If he went by Giuseppe, it'd be a lot easier to determine.
Would be good.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's a tough name to go through life with.
Yes.
Right?
Isn't your name Giuseppe in Italian?
It is. My name is Giuseppe in Italian. And yours is Donato.
Is it?
You don't like that?
I'm gonna scratch that off and write Santino under it.
All right. Yeah, you go with Santino. I'm going to go with Giuseppe.
All right.
Although I have not found one Giuseppe on anybody's rosters in the Chicago Catholic League. So,
did you look at Montini?
Yeah, I think I did. No Giuseppes.
All right.
So we'll talk to Coach Bukowski about that. After the end of the season, and see if he can find a Giuseppe for next year.
Okay. Yep.
All right. Good. Okay. Well, everybody, thank you for listening. As always, make sure you follow us and like us and subscribe to us wherever you listen from. And make sure you listen later on this week when we give our predictions and previews for the upcoming Week 2 round games of the playoffs. So, again, thank you for listening, and we will talk to you soon.